Hello, everybody. This is Young Penitent, and welcome to the channel. Another unscheduled stream, kind of short notice here, going live. I'm going to be talking about a recent visit I had to a new parish that was founded in Oregon. An old believer, an Old Rite parish that came over and was received into ROCOR. We had a priest, and I'll bring up a article which discusses it here so you guys can see what we're talking about. Give me a thumbs up in the comment section if you can hear me all right, if the sound's good. So, how's everybody doing tonight? It's a Sunday evening. I think it's the 4th week of Lent, or we just finished, or we're coming into the 5th week, something like that. So, final stretch. Okay, I've got a thumbs up from Matthew Johnson, so the sound's good. That's good to know. All right, so I'll launch into the stream here. And this is a story that came out. This is on orthochristian.com very recently. And an old believer parish in Alaska and Oregon join ROCOR. And it's accompanied by a video. And you can go and I guess I can link to this in the chat if you guys want to read it, but it's pretty short. There was a priest in Alaska and a priest in Oregon from the Belokranitskaya church, and they both wanted to join ROCOR, and this was in the works, I guess. And so they were received. They were baptized and then ordained into the church, into orthodoxy. So for those who don't know, I'm by no means an expert on old believers and the Old Rite. Eventually I'd like to bring on a guest to talk more in depth about it. There's a couple guys we've been having at my parish in Oregon. Couple people have been starting to come from the old believer community in Woodburn, which is just north of where I live. And they've been starting to come filter down, and some of them got baptized, and they've been coming to our church for a while now. And there's a large community of old believers in Woodburn, Oregon, and there are a lot of farmers and carpenters, electricians, this kind of thing, people of the land and old believers. This is a sect that from I believe it was I think the 17th century, there was a reform in the Russian church, and it was a Patriarch Nikon. And he started making a few changes. And you know how Orthodox people are. Orthodox people, they don't like change, So Patriarch Nikon started making these reforms to the church, a few changes, and the old believers, they didn't like it, and they didn't want to go along with it. And so they actually left the church, and they became a sect. And they were persecuted. They were actually persecuted by the church. I understand there was even some murder involved and things like that. And they fled, and there was a diaspora. And that's where these people come from. They actually aren't Orthodox. They're a sect. And they left the church. They did. They were a kind of a conservative movement, And you could think about, like, if you want to think of a parallel today, we have the true Orthodox, the genuine Orthodox Christians. You have this sect of people who are they're like Orthodox in everything except belonging to the church. You know, they left the church. The true Orthodox, these people, these kind of people, they left the church because they didn't like the calendar change. So now they're separated from the body of Christ. And I don't know, you know, some Orthodox people are more sympathetic towards their cause than others. You know, there's different attitudes towards them, you know. But getting back to the point, we have this old believer sect, and they have different pockets around the globe of old believers who were spread out like on the persecution, and they left, and they've been holding on to their traditions, like just like with this iron grip. Okay, these old believers, and they still wear their traditional clothing, and you know, they all go to their churches. Most of them are priestless, and they go and they have reader services every Sunday, and they get the whole family. They have these large families, and they go to these old believers. They go to their services. They have and they're, you know, and they do the services, the same services that are from, you know, 17th century. They haven't really changed anything. So you can give them that they did hold on to their traditions well. But something started to happen. Something was developing in that these people, they don't all speak Russian anymore. They started to kind of come along, and they started to become Americans. You know, basically, you stay here, you stick around and in a country long enough, and you a lot of them are losing their language, but they're still serving the services in Old Slavonic, and so they don't understand the services, and they want English. Okay, so that's why they're starting to, like, you know, basically what they told me was they're basically kind of just Pharisees. They're just kind of like holding on to these forms, these outward forms. And anyhow, this priest, he wanted to join ROCOR. He talked to the bishops, and he got received. And he had a whole parish. He was the Biela Kranitskaya sect, which it's a sect of the old believers that actually they eventually found priests. They found bishops and started ordaining priests anyhow. So this is one of the old believers. It's an old believer sect that has priests, and he had a parish, and he's a priest, and he came and became a ROCOR priest. And that's what the article said. And so I decided to go up and visit, and he had to leave his parish, and none of his parish followed him. It's kind of sad, you know, like you have all these people that you love, and you decide to leave, and none of them, you know, usually when someone, like, it's a pretty common story for an Orthodox priest to be like, not an Orthodox, but a Protestant minister or something, to start researching Orthodoxy, and he decides to leave. You know, he decides he's got to be Orthodox, and he announces to his congregation, "I'm going to become Orthodox. You can come with me if you want, and if not, fine." And usually, like, half of the congregation will follow, but in this case, nobody did. So he left with his family, and now he's serving in his home. It's a home church, and so I decided to go. We went with a couple brothers. And not this weekend, but last weekend, we decided to go up and visit them, just to, you know, provide support, you know, be some moral support for them, you know, a new parish, and they might be feeling, you know, they need some love, right? So we went up, and they're still serving in the Old Rite. And I talked to the priest. So I talked to the priest after the service. And he said, "You know, what did you think of the service?" I said, "Well, really, it's not that different." And he said, "Yeah, it's not. I'm really surprised that we went in a schism over a few small differences." And So one of those differences was the way that they cross themselves. They use an older form. He explained this. So they do this. Like an Orthodox is like this. This is how we do it now. Most modern day Orthodox. We got the three fingers, which is the Trinity, and then the two fingers down here, which is the two natures of Christ. Okay. But the old believers, they do it a little different. They have three fingers down here and two fingers up here, which is basically confessing the same thing. This is the two natures of Christ, divine and human, the human in submission to the divine, which is why this one is bent. And so they cross themselves like this. And I was talking to the priest, and it was really interesting. He told me this story. He said the first century Christians actually crossed themselves with their finger like this. Did you know that? Did you? I did not know that. Raise your hand if you knew that. I did not know that. So first century, our forms of worship have changed. Orthodoxy is an unchanged religion in its core and its beliefs, but the outward form has developed over time. It's like people liken it to a seed, which becomes a tree. So now we're this old growth, basically 2,000-year-old tree that started with a seed. So first century Christians were crossing themselves with their finger. This is one God. This is what he was telling me. And then when Arius came along and he was saying, Jesus is not God or something to that effect. And that's when they started doing this, I guess, because Jesus is God. He is God. He's God and man. So that's when they started to cross themselves. And it's funny, they'll cross themselves and they touch the top they kind of go around their face and touch the top of their shoulders. It's a little different. So this is how the old believers still cross themselves. And then I believe he said it was after the Sixth Ecumenical Council, when we had gone through the fourth, fifth, sixth, we had some discussions about, I think it was something to do with the nature, God's human, more discussing God's nature, the nature of God, these complex theological concepts. And after we had the monothelite, heresy, which was addressed in the Sixth Ecumenical Council, that's when they started doing this with the final one. That's what he told me. So that was a good story. I learned something from Father Nikita. And so basically, from talking to him, he was saying basically the driving factor for him and his family and these people that are becoming Orthodox is they want the English language. That's like the most important. Of course, they want the mysteries and the fullness of the truth, but they want English. They want English in their services, and their leadership is not going to be allowing that. So this has happened before too, where Old Rite, old believers become Orthodox and start Orthodox parishes. This happened in Erie, Pennsylvania, and there was a same situation. This is years ago, I understand, where it was basically people started wanting English, and a priest became Orthodox, and he brought people with him, and they were being persecuted by the old believers. Like this, the way these kind of insular communities survive is that they shame people for leaving. And so in Erie, people were getting, if you were that priest, for example, or the priest's wife was walking through the street in Erie, Pennsylvania, and he was getting spit upon by the other old believers. So they shun you, they shame you, they spit on you. I mean, it's really a persecution. And so I was actually hearing some stories. I was talking to some of the other parishioners, and they're experiencing similar things in Woodburn. So we can pray for these people. I hope I'm not, Some of them are a little nervous. Like the couple of these guys who've joined our parish, they don't want to come on my channel because they wouldn't want they don't want to experience this open persecution kind of thing. So that's why they're still nervous. So maybe in a few years, we might bring them on, and they'll feel a little more comfortable. So I just wanted to tell that story. Let's go through the comments here. So I see what I think is going to happen in Woodburn is going to what happened in Erie is going to happen in Woodburn. I think the floodgates are starting to open, and these old believers they're going to start coming over and becoming Orthodox, and we're going to have a nice little, grafting a branch back into its, back into the tree, basically, kind of thing. Nova Prussia says, thanks for the update. We had Amish converts too in South Carolina, and they stayed living their normal life. Honestly, we should use oil lamps, wax candles, head covering, and such. We can still rejoice in reconciliation and mutual growth. Yeah, well, I think those Amish are onto something. Keeping to these old ways. I guess candles, they're just like, candles are good for you. They like emit some sort of like I don't know, some sort of what is it, like some sort of particles, like ions, or yeah, it's like ions. It's like some sort of ionic like energy comes out of candles that's actually healthy for you. So I think these screens that we're in front of all the time are terrible for us. So what, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what else I could say. I just wanted to real briefly share that story. I don't know what else I have to talk about tonight. I had thought of doing a stream on another subject that's more of a touchy subject, and I I don't know. I still might do that stream, but this is kind of I'm trying to stay away from scandal, but scandal gives you something to talk about sometimes. I've done it before, and it's stressful. So I don't know. What else is there to talk about? Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any insights? I don't know. I mean, it might just be a pray for this community, that for their growth, their nurturing by God's grace, so that this community, it's really a precious thing. It's really a precious thing in God's eyes, to have this, a church community, like a really small church community like this, like being planted. Each one of those is just kind of precious in God's eyes, and so they need our prayers, and I think God will take care of them. Touch on all subjects. Do you want me to talk about the other things I got? I don't know. Maybe I should do a dedicated stream. I was going to do a talk about things that I see online. This, phenomenon of people, Orthodox, these I don't know. I think I'd better. I don't really want to. I'm kind of feeling a little hesitant to talk about it right now, but these debates that go on online, a lot of uh, a lot of people who are coming to the church work these days were convinced of orthodoxy. We're convinced about its truth by following debates online. They follow debates, and the arguments, they make sense to them, and they say, "Oh, orthodoxy, it must be true." And so, eventually, some of these people they'll come to church, um, they get baptized and start living the life. I think though probably that a lot of them maybe don't go to church. Like I know a lot of my viewers, shame on you. You guys are watching my channel and you're not Orthodox and you don't plan on being Orthodox. I don't know why you're even here. Like why are you watching my channel? And like you're interested maybe, or you just like me. I mean, but you don't do what I say. Go to church. Go to church and get baptized. Like a lot of viewers on these YouTube Orthodox YouTube channels they're not Orthodox. They're not even interested in being Orthodox. I'm not sure. They just like why are people so hesitant to just go to church? Like they're nervous, or they maybe are not. Maybe they have social anxiety, or a lot of people, like some people, they don't want to do the work, like for example, like people, a very common thing is, I don't want to keep a prayer rule, or I don't want to fast. But if you're not going to keep a prayer rule and you're not going to fast, how are you ever going to make any progress? How are you going to humble yourself? I like David says, I humbled myself with prayer and fasting, or whatever, something like that. Like you're not going to acquire any humility if you don't do the practices. It's you got to start practicing the faith, acquiring virtue. So like I had this thing. So okay, now I'm talking what I didn't want to talk about. But like I go on X a lot, too much. I need to step back and just take a step away from X. But there's a lot of debate going on X, and a lot of it is uncharitable. And I'm not saying don't debate, but if you haven't been doing these practices and acquiring virtue, the Christian life, like Saint Seraphim says, acquire the grace of God, acquiring virtue, acquiring the grace of God, acquiring humility, which are all basically the same thing. It's going to come through when you're having a debate. And if you can't be patient with people and charitable, people, it's going to come through in your texts. I mean, in your tweets, in your texts, and in your debates. So I'm not saying don't debate, but I'm saying maybe wait until you've acquired some virtue, some patience, some humility, because you're going to turn people off. A lot of people have we Orthodox have a very bad reputation. Nuts for Cowboys says, I think that most people are lazy. It's easier to lay in bed than drive to church. Yeah, that could be it. True. That could be true. Just like it, it's like going to the gym, for me, I don't know why, but it's easy. If I want to go to the gym 3 days a week and I set that schedule, I'm going. I never miss a workout. And I'm just disciplined by nature. Maybe I learned it from my dad, who was a very hard worker. So maybe, you know, for me, going to church every Saturday and Sunday is not that hard. Is it that hard for people? It is. I think people find it hard. They're just, you know, they're just inertia, like lack of inertia. They're just stuck. So what's it going to take for people to get up and go to church? You know, just get in your, like, how hard is it to drive a car? You get dressed, put on some nice clothes. Don't wear your torn jeans. Don't wear a t-shirt to church, you know, wear a nice shirt, you know, wear your Sunday best and just come to church, you know? So yeah, I don't know. This stream might not go on too long today. I just I just wanted to tell that story about the old believer community coming to the church. And so I think that's my pray for them, you know, pray for the old believers. I think this is, like I said, I think the floodgates are opening up. So with our prayers, you know, that parish is going to start growing, and eventually they'll be able to move out of their house church and build a parish, which is what we want, and the goal, and to be successful and thrive and all that. So pray for Father Nikita, pray for me, and we're getting close to Lent, so you know, when that comes around, I probably won't be online for Holy Week. I probably not going to show my face, so I think I have another week or two to make streams. Anyhow, so it's going to be a short one tonight. Thank you all for joining, and I'll catch you all in the next one. All right, good night.